What's the latest on the Deebo Samuel situation? And where the hell is he going to go? That's all coming to you right now on the Niners Nation podcast. Hello and welcome to the Niner Nate's Nonsense Podcast. I don't know what I said at the beginning. I am still getting over COVID-19. It has been a hell of a week, and so my voice is very nasally. But with me this week is pretty much one of my favorite people on Niners Twitter. It's Jessie Naylor of Last Second Sports. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Nate. That intro is so fire. Although if Deebo gets traded and Jimmy's gone, you might have to trade half that thing out. But at the very least, that was super dope. I love that intro.
I love it. Honestly, like every time I get to press that button, I'm hype as hell. I'm ready to talk some 49er football. I mean, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. It was kind of wild because last week, you guys were talking and I was pretty much off Twitter because I got COVID and I was just like, I can't do anything. And I was like, I hope Deebo doesn't get traded until after I feel better. And here we are. We're 2 days from the draft. And I mean, is Deebo getting traded or is Deebo getting traded? Who knows, right? Like, how do you feel about the situation right now?
It's absolutely crazy, man. This thing is, I feel like every day it inches more and more towards this guy being traded, right? And it's funny because I felt like there was this kind of quietness last night that hit or yesterday that hit to where you didn't really hear a lot. And it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, does that mean that it's over? Does that mean it's the quiet before the storm? And then today, I just feel like everything just came out. All of a sudden, the 49ers are listening to offers. The Jets are going to try to woo him. We got multiple teams in. Like, there's a bunch going on. So, yeah, my gut feeling, man, is this thing happens. I would imagine they would do it before the draft, but I don't know, man. They could do it draft day. They may not do it at all, but my gut feeling is Deebo's gone. Like, if you're telling me I have to make a decision, Deebo's out. Deebo's out. He's going to end up a Jet, pick 10, pick 38, maybe more. Maybe something slightly different, but he's gone, man. Like I don't see how this situation gets rectified. And to me, John Lynch was very, very clear. Not a lot came out of that press conference, but when he starts it and says, by the way, don't ask about Deebo. We're not talking about Deebo. That tells me it's a tense situation, right? This is a very, very tense situation that they've got. And Deebo wants out, man. You got to make it work. So trade him.
Here's my thing with it, right? So you have this guy who obviously doesn't want to be here. Mm-hmm. And if the Jets are willing to give up this king's ransom that now, even Tony Pauline is talking about, which would be 10 and 38, maybe even 35. Like, if you get those picks, that's like, for a team that went to the NFC Championship game, those picks are franchise altering in a way. Like, you can literally figure out how to fix all your holes with those 3 picks and make another run at the Rams. And if that's what happens, then thanks for everything, Deebo. I appreciate you. You're a tremendous football player, maybe an interesting kind of dude, but I'm all about the Niners becoming the best football team possible, and trading Deebo right now, from what I've seen, sets the 49ers up to beat the Rams. Because if they nail these picks, not only are these the most important picks in franchise history outside of last year's Trey Lance pick, but they're picks that literally skyrocket this team to, I mean, they were already a top 3 NFC team, like maybe a top 4 NFL team. Like if they nail these picks, they get the right center to replace Alex Mack. They go out and replace Deebo with a stud wide receiver. They go get another edge for the other side of Nick Bosa. With those 3 picks, you can do that. And I'm cool with them doing that. I'm not going to be mad if that's what ends up happening. I will be mad about my freaking intro, though, but that's
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different directions that they can go for sure. I mean, You could go the route of replacing Deebo right away or trying to replace him, right? You could go the route of getting your interior offensive lineman. You could trade back. You could trade back up into the first round with that, let's say, pick 38 and 69 or whatever they end up getting. There's a lot of different directions that you can go. And if you just stand pat and draft who you want, I mean, either way, at some point, if the player doesn't want to be here and you're getting that much of a haul, like, let's not forget where we're at. Is it the worst thing in the world if a second round pick turns into a first rounder, a second rounder, and maybe more? And on top of that, you don't have to pay him his $25 million a year, which means now you've got more money to play with. Is that, I don't know if that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. I would prefer to keep Deebo, yes. But just looking at it from the positive side, I think that's a pretty good haul, right? And there's some positives that you can take out of it. And this being year 6 of the offseason for the 49ers that this regime has ran, I feel pretty good about them having those picks and doing the right thing. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I got to imagine something happens soon. Shoot, I'm surprised something hasn't happened already, to be real with you. But at the same time, let's just be patient. I mean, it's either coming real soon or it's not. So we're about to find out.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's either coming soon or it's not at all. And if it's not at all, Deebo Samuel will be back with Trey Lance. But the thing is now I'm getting to the point where maybe I'm in my own head. I don't know about if you've thought about this like this much, but at this point I'm like, maybe trading Deebo is the best thing they can do because it sets them up to be a better football team long term. Like, do you really want to put 25 million on a one wide receiver? Or do you want to have more picks to go get better and make a better football team? And I love Deebo, don't get me wrong. I was saying he's one of one, all this stuff during the season, but man, like, at what point are you like, if this doesn't happen, it might be kind of sad that we didn't trade him just because you can just thinking of the potential of the 49ers when it comes to a team that literally was one bonehead Jimmy play away from potentially going to the Super Bowl and winning it all. And we've talked, me and you, a million times how I believe if Trey Lance is the guy, it doesn't matter what happens. Because if you have the guy at quarterback, anything's possible. And so that's where I come back to a million times. I'm just like, man, it's such a weird situation to not want Deebo back, but that's where I am at this point.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want him back. I would love to have Deebo back, but I just don't want to have him here against his will, right? Like if this is where if he doesn't want to be here anymore, like what do you do, right? Like you got to let him go. And I know that they could hold him hostage. They can franchise him for 2 years in a row. But is that really the way that you want to run your franchise? Like to me, that's a no-brainer. You don't want to do that. That's not how you want to run the franchise. So you just got to kind of move on from this mess, right? And you've got the opportunity here where I got to imagine it's not just the Jets, right? There's teams that need receivers. There's the Packers, maybe the Lions, there's the Eagles, the Ravens, maybe. I mean, there's teams that are going to be fighting for his services. And if you have multiple teams bidding, I mean, if you can get a first rounder, a second rounder, and something more, I mean, just to be clear, Tyreek Hill netted around, I think it was pick 11 when it was all said and done, if you add everything up.
Yeah.
And it was pick 13, I believe, for Devontae Adams, just when you add up points and everything that goes into it. If you're getting pick 10 and then some, you already got more for Deebo than you did Art. Yeah. Two of the best receivers in this league for many, many years. How do you not say yes to that if this man doesn't want to be here? That's a no-brainer. Get it done now. That's assuming that that's what's being offered. I got to imagine just based off of things that we're seeing, hearing, that probably is being offered. And if that's the case, you take it and run. You figure it out from there. Now, luckily, the 49ers, by the way, I don't think this is a coincidence, especially now, have done their due diligence on some of these first-round receivers. Maybe that was writing on the wall. Maybe that's just something they always do. But they're prepared for this, right? So I know a lot of people are like, well, it has to happen before draft day. I think that it probably should happen before draft day because you got to work out a contract with Deebo. But if it really comes down to, hey, they're 5 picks into the draft and they make this swap, the 49ers are prepared. Like, trust me, they are prepared for this moment if that's what it gets to. So I'm not too worried about that necessarily. But yeah, man, like, it's a lot. It's a lot for Deebo Samuel, who's a very good player. But if he doesn't want to be here, take the money and run. Just run. Take it.
That's why everyone's saying take a king's ransom. I mean, like if you're offered a king's ransom, you take it and you see what happens. And so let's talk a little bit about, we'll start with wide receiver and we'll kind of just go through the draft board. We'll talk about some different guys who we could potentially see, if they got let's go with the hypothetical. They get 10, 35, and 38. So those are the guys you'd be talking about. And we'll start with wide receiver. I'm a big Christian Watson guy. I really like, and I've talked to you about it, I think, in personal messages. Just, I really like the idea of having our own personal Jamar Chase. And I understand they're not Jamar Chase. I get that Christian Watson is not Jamar Chase. But what Jamar Chase could do for this team is Jamar Chase like, because they have that kind of chemistry. And it really seems like Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance have that kind of chemistry. So, I mean, if you have great chemistry with both your wide receivers, it's going to be a field day on offense, especially when you have Kyle Shanahan scheming these guys wide open.
Yeah, I'm with you. To me, if I go receiver at 10, I'm taking Jamison Williams. Like, he's just, to me, he's the clear-cut best receiver in the draft. He did tear his ACL around 10 weeks ago. That's not something I'm excited about. But if you look at him, he's running already. He's already running. He's already cutting. 10 weeks later, it's actually very impressive. So I'm taking Jamison Williams. If I'm taking a receiver at 10, I would prefer to take Hamilton, but isn't that the safety's name out of Notre Dame? If he's there, because 49ers need a starting safety. He's by far the best safety in the draft. If he's there, I would love to go that route. I'm cool with taking a Christian Watson later for sure. I'm also cool, by the way, taking Jamison Williams and then coming back at 35 or 38 and taking Christian Watson. Like, the way that I see it, even if Deebo's on this team, you need another receiver. You have 3 legit receivers right now. You have some special teams guys. You have Ray, who's, half wide receiver, special teams, running back type hybrid. They need a second receiver, even if Deebo's on this roster. So if you trade Deebo and you get a Jamison Williams and you get a Christian Watson, yeah, I'm fine with that too. Like, is it that bad of a thing to go and get 2 guys that you think are good at the position and hope that, obviously you hope they both pan out, but if one ends up being a legit stud, then it's okay that you lost Deebo, right? So I'm fine doing that as well. So yeah, I'm with it, man. I think there's multiple options that they could go pick 10, pick 35, pick 38, whatever they end up getting.
And, we'll keep going, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on taking an edge rusher early, because, we talk a lot about, we love Nick Bosa. He's got his 5th year. That's huge. He's going to be there next year no matter what. Nick Bosa is an absolute stud. And, they're obviously relying on Kinlaw, which, if Kinlaw turns out to not be just completely destroyed from the arthritis in his knees, which you told me about first. And then, they also have Eric Armstead. What do you think about, while they've done a decent job getting free agent guys to fill that D Ford spot, what do you think of like actually spending a high pick on a stud edge rusher to replace D Ford? Because there's some guys in this draft that they could totally take, even if they trade back. They don't have to take them at 10. And I mean, pairing them with Nick Bosa would be disgusting.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that route either. I mean, realistically, let's assume they have to stay at pick 10. I'm taking best player available, right? Whether I think that's Jamison Williams, whether I think that's Hamilton, whether I think that's an edge rusher of any kind, depending on who falls. I'm taking best player available. I am. And then from there, I'm getting receivers, 38, 35 if they get that pick, 61, 90. I mean, there's multiple routes that you can go. You're not locked into going receiver. I'm cool with that. If the best player available is an edge rusher, then take the edge rusher. Like, it's a position of need also. I'm not mad at it. And that's the crazy thing about this draft, right? You hear rumors that a lot of teams are looking to move back. Not a lot of teams are looking to move up. You hear rumors that this draft has maybe 15 first rounders in it. But where the draft is super talented and deep, that's where the 49ers have needs. They have needs at wide receiver. They have needs at safety. They have needs at edge. That's where the draft is the deepest. So for me, I'm totally fine with that. And by the way, now we're hearing that Linderbaum may fall out of the first round. Well, if you have pick 35 or 38 or both, you certainly can get back into the end of the first round and also pick him up. So they would have so much flexibility to move fluidly throughout this draft. It would be crazy.
That's the thing is when you think about this King's ransom, it's almost like it makes you like salivate thinking about it, right? Because you're just like, the best part about the 49ers right now is the fact that in an ideal world, they're set at quarterback for the next 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to even think about quarterback. And everyone is basically, crapping on this draft because it's very much quarterback terrible. There isn't a quarterback. A lot of people are like, there's not a quarterback I would draft in the first round. And it's going to happen on Thursday night. We all know it's going to happen. It always does. But the 49ers don't have to worry about that. So in order for the thing is they can go get, draft steals, draft guys who, are studs and have the potential to start for many years and not even have to go with best, with player they need. They can go best player available and fill spots that can help them out. It's like I'm like salivating even thinking about it, Jesse. There's so many people I think in the comments as well who are just salivating talking about it as well because it's just so damn exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to address Kyle's question there. I just did a show and Sunil, we did a mock draft. We traded Deebo. He actually went with Linderbaum at 10 because he feels like Mac is going to retire, which I tend to agree with. I personally would not go Linderbaum at 10. I think that's way too early. I like Linderbaum, clearly the best center in the draft. I would have gone I think in the scenario that laid out, I would have gone Jamison Williams. I would have tried to trade back up into the end of the first round and gotten Linderbaum. That would be ideal for me. But I'm not mad at him taking Linderbaum. I mean, Linderbaum, again, clearly the best center in the draft. That's a position of need, big position of need. You're protecting your investment in Trey Lance. I just think it was a little bit too early. And if you can't trade back, like I said, best player available, and Linderbaum to me was not the best player available there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is the main spots you mentioned already are safety. We would have to get a permanent safety on the outside of Jimmy Ward. They have to get a center situation figured out because I like Daniel Brunskill more than most people, but I don't think he should be the starting center for a team that has a potential to win a Super Bowl. No. And then, wide receiver to replace Deebo. And so I think that the best part about this wide receiver being drafted would be that he's not going to have to worry about the Jimmy Garoppolo effect. And what's the Jimmy Garoppolo effect? It's the fact that the man can't throw more than 10 yards, and so you have to use him as a running back. And I love the running back Deebo. It was fun, right? But it seems like running back Deebo is the reason that Deebo doesn't want to be a 49er because the Niners said, hey, we'll give you, 19, 20 million. And he's like, no, I want 25 million if I'm going to, or I want 25 million if I'm going to be a running back. And they said, heck no, dude. And so he'll get 25 million and won't have to be a running back somewhere else, even though he would get 20 million and be a running back here. And it seems like that's the big thing because wide receivers generally just don't want to do that. And so I'm hoping, with these picks, we can play wide receivers like actual wide receivers, not running backs, because it's kind of dangerous. And we've seen from Deebo Samuel's, career here that it's been dangerous.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like, let's be clear about this. If you trade Deebo, you're not getting Deebo back, right? You're not going to find another Deebo. There's not another Deebo in this draft. And to be kind of to your point, you don't need to find another Deebo. It's okay to have these receivers just be receivers, right? And for everything that's great about Deebo, I love Deebo Samuel. Nobody in the league can do what he does. And so if that's the case, you can't be looking to replace Deebo. You just got to be looking to get the best players available. And if you can get a guy that's a crisp route runner with great hands, really kind of the opposite of what Deebo is, right? And what Deebo brings to the table, then you're fine. Like that can work out too, right? You don't have to get the Deebo. You don't have to replace Deebo with Deebo. You just have to replace him with the best players available. And if you tell me that I leave with, I don't know, Jamison Williams and Christian Watson or Jamison Williams and a Linderbaum or something like that to replace Deebo Samuel, I feel good about it, right? Or a Hamilton and a Christian Watson. Like I'm cool with those. Like if my trade was Deebo for those two guys, no, there's no guarantee that either or both are going to pan out, but I feel pretty good about it, right? I feel good about the situation. So to me, yeah, there's so many different directions that the 49ers can go with this whole situation, but replacing Deebo is not an option. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get a 1-for-1. You're not going to get a guy that plays like Deebo, and you shouldn't expect to get that out of this draft because it doesn't exist. Deebo is one of one.
Yeah, I just don't think you're gonna see another Deebo Samuel, and I think that that's okay. I think Deebo Samuel was perfect for what the 49ers were doing before, and now they're moving on to something, completely different. And it almost feels like they're moving on to like what should be, I don't know how you feel about this, Jesse. I'd love to know what should be one of the most dynamic, exciting offenses in the NFL. Because now you have Kyle Shanahan with an actual quarterback who can throw the ball, who also can, maneuver a pocket, move around, run if need be. It's just, I think that they should, and I don't know if this is if you feel this way, but I think they should be one of the top 5 offenses, no doubt in my mind next year, even with Trey Lance being a rookie, just because Kyle's going to make it easy for him.
Well, I mean, listen, if Debo's not there, I don't know how much I believe that. Like that one will be a tough one for me. I think that they definitely are going to be more dynamic, but I also don't think they have to be a top 5 offense, right? Like if you can get a good safety out of this draft, an edge, maybe a nickel corner, it's okay to let your defense carry you a little bit, right? It's also okay to use your weapons that are available. And maybe the offense is a little bit more boom or bust, right? Maybe it's more explosive, but you're not able to keep the drives together like you were in the past. That's okay. Like I'll take a quick hitting offense that's iffy on scoring and a defense that can lock people down and give you more chances throughout the game. I'll take that, right? And maybe that's what the offense is with Trey Lance. I don't know. But without Deebo, and if Mac retires, I don't know if I can say that the offense is going to take that leap. I think certain players will take that leap. I definitely think that Lance is better than Jimmy. I think Ayuk will certainly step up. Maybe that makes room for Kittle to do his thing. That's a lot of weapons to lose and miss out on. So I don't know if I'll go that far. But if they draft right, I think in 2 years, once Lance is now into his second full season of starting, and you got these young rookie receivers up to snuff, yeah, I think this offense can be very explosive.
I think I'm most excited for that Ayuk leap that everyone keeps talking about. I think the great JM actually just tweeted about it. I think Ayuk will take a leap with Deebo gone. Not only is he going to take a leap with Deebo gone, but he's also going to take a leap with the fact that now he has a quarterback who can actually throw the ball. But Nick Ellard actually asked an interesting question, right? So we're going to talk about 61 later on. I do want to pretend like Deebo doesn't get traded. He's on this team and then he gets his extension or whatever. But let's stick with the whole Deebo Samuel gets traded. We're at 10. Would you want to move back with a team like the Eagles, or do you want to draft, wide receiver at 10? Are you set on that, or would you be willing to move back and maybe accrue more picks? Currently, they have 9. That's a lot, but we know that the 49ers tend to trade picks and move around to get the guys they want. And so I feel like I would be okay with trading back from 10 at least once to accrue more picks. And, heck, if you trade back far enough in the first round, you might even get another first round for next year.
Well, and not only that, you might be able to get because don't the Eagles have 2 first rounders?
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe I could trade 10 and let's say 38 and get 2 first rounders. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be interested in that for sure. I just, like I said, I think it's going to be tough. Like if you get picked 10, you're going to have to be willing to pick there because not a lot of teams, these are rumors, right? But I'm just going off of what I'm hearing is that everybody in the national media is saying about 15 prospects they believe, the NFL believes, consensus that about 15 prospects are worth being picked in the first round, that a lot of teams are looking to trade back, not a lot of teams are looking to trade up. So if that's the case, I think you got to be ready to pick at 10. But if you could get a second first round pick or a future first round pick and still stay around 16 or so, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yes, of course I'm doing that. No question.
I want to bring up this comment here. I'm not bringing up comments. I'm not good at this. I'm still learning how to do this, guys. I'm sorry. So the Kyle Pratt's, I'm gonna say Pratt. I think it's Pratt. Too much is being put on Watson and Lance knowing each other. Draft the best wide receiver, and him and Lance will build a relationship. How do you feel about that? Because obviously, yeah, but I just think that that Jamar Chase worked out so well last year with Joe Burrow, and I think that obviously he's going to be a stud no matter what. But I think he's an even better player because he's with Joe Burrow as opposed to being with a Kirk Cousins or Jalen Hurts
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
Tua.
yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. I totally I get this. I get this to a certain extent, but I'm not trying to say like let's take Watson at 10, right? But if I'm there at 35 or 38, that's about in the range that he's going to be, maybe 45 if you're lucky he's in that range. So that's about the range you're going to be in. It's not like you're getting a poor athlete. Like these are things that we know about him. Big, fluid hips, good route runner, iffy hands, right? He drops the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
Great blocker in the run game. Knows Trey Lance, comes from a pro style offense. Those are things we all know about him. So if you're looking at him and let's say a Pickens, right? I know a lot of people are big on Pickens. I'm pretty big on Pickens. I don't like, to me, it's not clear cut that you should go Pickens over Watson, right? Like if that's the choice. So if I'm kind of iffy or I think it's close, but oh, by the way, I think that he gels well with my quarterback, then that's the route that I'm going to go, right? Like, because to me, I have a better chance of this prospect succeeding knowing that he's comfortable with my quarterback, knowing he played in a pro style offense, knowing that North Dakota basically expects the same things out of their receivers that we do in a Shanahan offense. So to me, in that scenario, I'm leaning towards a guy that I think can fit better because of those scenarios and have a better chance to succeed on the next level because none of these guys are sure things, right? And so I'm not advocating for picking him at 10, but like I said, 35, 38, if it's between him and a Pickens, I'm not mad if you go Christian Watson.
Yeah, no. And I think I want Christian Watson just because he's big and he's like, I mean, he's just a freak, right? Like you look at him and it's like, when was the last time the San Francisco 49ers had a guy like that? Like it's funny when I was working in Seattle, and I bring up Seattle a lot because it's where a lot of my experience is. When they drafted DK Metcalf, the 12s were stoked because he was big and they had never had a guy like that. They had never had a guy who goes up and gets the ball. And granted, Metcalf has his own problems, but Metcalf has multiple times has just shown you how much bigger he is, how much stronger he is, and he's found ways to come down with that ball. Now, will he, when Drew Lock's the quarterback, we'll find out, right? But
right, yeah, very, very different scenario. But if I told you that the 49ers receiving core for the foreseeable future was Ayuk, Jennings, Jamison Williams, and Christian Watson. Feel pretty good about that, right? Like I feel just as good about that as I do saying that it's Deebo, receiver that we picked in round 4, whoever that is, right? Like a Tyquan Thornton, Jennings, and an Ayuk. Like I just feel really, really good about that. So for me, like again, I just think Watson fits exactly what the 49ers need. And by the way, when Watson caught fire and we had pick 61 and everybody's like, we got to trade up and get him. I said, no, absolutely not. Like I'm waiting on receiver. I'm not going to overextend myself to go get Christian Watson if Deebo's on this roster. But if he's not on this roster and I'm picking in that wheelhouse anyways, yeah, I'll probably go out of my way to pick Christian Watson. I will.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is if they can figure out how to get from not or to pick at 10 and they have a guy, they have that 35 and 38, then it's a no-brainer to go get Watson at 35 if he's there. Like I just don't see a world in which if Christian Watson is there and they have 35 that they don't get him. So, I mean, and I think it would just be super exciting for Niner fans because like I said, there's just no one I like Twan Jennings. But Christian Watson is a an entirely different entity with what he can do for this team and what he did when he was at North Dakota State, which is a pro style offense. And I think people forget about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, he does everything that Shanahan wants him to do, right? He's a great blocker. Like that, first and foremost, he's a great blocker. Like that's huge in this offense. Big body guy, fast, fluid hips. I mean, he just has a different gear. Now, that doesn't mean he pans out. It doesn't mean he's going to be great. But yeah, when you talk about him versus a Jennings, as far as like what the potential upside is, this is not even a conversation, right? Like this is not even close. So yeah, you're right about that. It's Christian Watson, man. I would love to have him at 35 or 38 if that's what happens.
So you're saying that you would rather go safety with the first pick. If you had to pick at 10, you would go safety over wide receiver. Is that how you're feeling right now?
If that specific safety is available, yeah. If the consensus number one safety in the draft is available, yes, 100%.
You would take him over going wide receiver.
I would. Yep.
Here's the thing that's interesting. So like you mentioned that you want to go safety. The 49ers don't seem to think that way. And we kind of noticed it, right? They traded Buckner, right? And everyone thought Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, right? Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb. For sure going to happen. And what do? They take Kinlaw there, and they go back and get Ayuk later on, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But it seems like if they get stuck at 10, they'll replace the thing they traded. And that seems about right to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily arguing that. I mean, my gut feeling is they would go Jameson Williams. Like if I had to bet my house on it, they get to pick 10, he's available, they're going Jameson Williams. Like I truly believe that. I truly believe that he's the best receiver in the draft. They just clearly lost their best weapon, who's a receiver. I think that they're looking to replace him. And I think Jameson Williams is that. I mean, when I look at Jameson Williams, there's not a lot that this kid can't do. He's dynamic with the ball in his hands. Like I said, great at catching, right? Great route runner, do it all receiver. He's exactly what you want. So I'm not looking like a lot of people. Drake London's probably the other guy that's really high up. I'm certainly not going Drake London. I think Jameson Williams is clearly better than Wilson or Olave. Yeah, for me, that's my gut is that's the route they go. But if Hamilton's there at another position in need, I'm considering it. Yeah, I am. Because again, I think that you can come back, and if you have pick 35 or 38, you're going to get a receiver there. And then you can run hey, I'll get a Traquan later, or I'll get a Danny Gray later, something like that. Kind of the original, what I would do in a mock draft originally is if Deebo's on this roster, I'm going after some of those guys late, some of the burners late. Well, then I'm just kind of shifting. I'm getting Hamilton, then I'm getting a receiver with 35 or 38, whatever I get, and then I'm doubling down and round 3, round 4, and getting a burner wide receiver and going that route. So, and then at 61, by the way, things open up, right? Like I could go receiver there. I could go interior offensive line. I can go corner. Like there's so many. I can go edge rusher. Hell, I could come back with a Nick Bonito. 61 is wide open because now I don't need that safety anymore. I just got a receiver at 38 or 35 or whatever. And now 61, I truly can go just best player available and feel great about it. I don't hear you. No.
Oh, my bad. I muted myself. I'm trying not to sniff into the microphone. Sorry.
No, I got it.
Nick Ellard asks, would Jesse grab Kyle Hamilton over Stingley or Jermaine Johnson?
I would. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Stingley's just we got our outside corners, right? Unless I'm going to move Stingley inside. Jermaine Johnson's good, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think Hamilton can be a game changer at that safety position, right? And so I understand people have got cold feet with him. He didn't run the fastest 40. Like, how do you play on film? I'll tell you this. I was told that when I was going to watch Kirby Joseph, this was an athlete who was all over the field, sideline to sideline, making play after play after play. I didn't get that vibe when I watched him. Like, I thought he was cool, but I didn't look at this guy and go, "Oh man, uber athlete. He plays super fast on the field." No, I mean, instincts play a big part in this too. Like, just being the fastest guy is not necessarily going to win you things. You've got to be very instinctive. He's a big bot. I mean, I don't know, man. I think he's a game changer, and especially if you need a safety man, to me, I would do that, and I wouldn't think twice about it.
We got KC here. He wants to know, what about Olave or Wilson in the later rounds?
Well, I mean, I think probably both of them go round one.
I guess later picks then. I don't know.
Later pick, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know which one I like more out of those two. Man, that's a tough one. I like them both. I think they're both decent.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me, I'm going Watson. I'm going Watson, and I'm going so many names in my head. I'm going Jameson Williams. Like, if I'm going receivers, that's what I'm doing. I'm bookending with those guys. I think Olave or Wilson. Now, maybe if we trade with Philly, like you said, that's maybe that's the route you end up going, is you're choosing between them and a Drake London type. I'm taking one of them probably over a Drake London. But yeah, I don't know.
Jamar Armstrong, my co-host, agrees with you. So you're
go.
dead on about
As he should. No, I'm just kidding.
So let's talk about a world where Deebo Samuel is still in the 49ers and I don't have to change my intro video. So the Niners stay pat. We have the most boring Thursday in the history of 49er football ever. And we don't get to pick until 61. Who is your, I guess, let's go with who's your dream guy at 61? And then who are some other guys that you'd like to have?
Dream guy at 61. I'm still really big on Nick Bonito. I love Nick Bonito. I know that maybe edge is probably not like the biggest pressing need right now. I just think you talk about somebody who could fill that role that we desperately need opposite of Bosa, a true wide nine type speed pass rusher that D Ford was supposed to bring. I really think Bonito can be that guy. I love Nick Bonito. I also, believe it or not, Jaquan Brisker is a player that I know a lot of people like. And a lot of people are thinking that he's going to be there, probably early 40s is where he's going to go. ESPN actually has him as the highest percentage of being picked at 61 out of all the players for the 49ers, believe it or not. And they have him at about a 45% chance to actually be there at 61. So if Brisker's there out of all the safeties, probably lean him. I'm cool with Cross. I'll be real with you. I've watched all the safeties except for I think it's Lewis Sign, however you say his name. He's the only one I haven't watched, right? And based off of the only reason I haven't really put a lot of eyes on him is because I just don't feel like the 49ers are really going to be in a position to get him, no matter whether they trade Deebo or keep Deebo, right? But out of all the other safeties, to me, Brisker, Cross, Kirby Joseph, Petrie, I think all of these guys are good prospects, but none of them are must-haves. Like if they ended up with any of those safety, Cook's another one, I'm fine with any of them. Like, they all have strengths and they all have flaws in their game that are going to need to be coached out. So for me, like, Benito's like that number one guy. Outside of that, if they go safety, which I would imagine that they would look at, any one of those safeties I'm fine with.
Yeah, because I mean, in that scenario, you would be just sticking with Deebo, Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings. And I think that,
Right.
Here's the one thing that, you have to start asking yourself. So, I listened to your show a little bit today. You mentioned you don't think Alex Mack is coming back. It seemed like the way that John Lynch talked today, it doesn't seem like Alex Mack isn't coming back. Do you think that with the first pick in this draft, they immediately address something that they think is really important, which obviously safety is super important. I don't want any part of what's his name starting next to Jimmy Ward. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Jesus.
Oh, you talking about Moore or Hafunga or any of them?
Hafunga.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
like Tavares Moore. Don't get me wrong. Like he's a fine football player. He's just not, the guy I'd want starting on a defense that has, Nick Bosa and Travarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley, because he would be the weak spot, right?
Oh, for
and
sure.
so, do you think that they address center before they address safety?
I think that they've done their homework and they realize that they could wait until 93 and probably still get a good center. So for me, I think that they would wait and probably still go either pass rusher or safety in that position. Because I feel like there's going to be a couple good centers. Now, mock drafts are very different, but mock drafts, I mean, even at, I think 105 is the pick after, that you've got some good options there. But I think at 93, you can still get some good centers. So for me, if Mac's going to retire, and it does sound like he's going to, they're going to have to address that in this draft for sure. But, they also still have options on the team. They have options in free agency that they can help fill that role temporarily while they're getting their rookie up to speed. I think that they would probably wait until at least pick 93 to make that center spot.
It's funny because we're at the point now where if they don't trade Deebo, we're kind of sitting here looking at a different draft. We're like, okay, well, we still have Deebo Samuel. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is there to, I mean, there's players to be excited about, right? But it's a lot of like best player available almost for all those 9 picks, which, may not be a bad thing. They may find some more steals like a Fred Warner, like a George Kittle, like a hopefully Ambry Thomas ends up being, all those type of guys. But, it definitely becomes a different draft. If they trade Deebo, it feels like they get better faster. And I don't know if that's a weird way to say that, but it really does feel like they're a better football team in some ways if they trade Deebo and they nail these picks versus if they don't trade Deebo and they just have a bunch of picks in, the 3rd and 4th and 5th rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. I see Jamal's talking about Chris Sims is all big on Nick Bonito.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I don't know how I feel about that. Sims is usually pretty good, but he's been with some weird things lately. I'll say this. I watched Bonito, I think it was end of February, was when I did my write-up on him for Sports Illustrated. And I watched Mafe, I watched Epiketti, I watched Myjai Sanders. I watched quite a few guys. Bonito, first guy I watched, and still this whole time has been the one that's kind of stuck in the back of my mind as the guy that I would prefer. So, for whatever that's worth, I don't, like I said, I don't know how to feel about Sims liking him that much. I don't know if I would go that far. The Micah Parsons thing, that's pretty high praise, but I think that he would fit what the 49ers desperately need opposite of Bosa for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's my biggest thing. And I think that people continue to talk about how, I love Nick Bosa, right? And I really love what they've done with this defensive line, the fact that they focus on it as much as they have. And so I don't get why people are like, oh no, edge rusher isn't that important when Nick Bosa had D Ford, it was one of the most disgusting pass rushers I've ever seen in my entire life. And I understand like it was very limited because D Ford is very limited, but if they pick the right guy, and obviously I know they have all these free agent guys, but they like a rotation because of the 3-4 that they run. When it comes down to 3rd down and you're trying to stop Matthew Stafford, you would have Nick Bosa and your drafted pass rusher out there to go get him. And so I don't know why people don't deem edge rusher the most important part of this draft, just because I really feel like it is. Because you want to help Trey Lance and limit his, not mistakes, but like the parts where he's going to struggle, because there's going to be times where Trey Lance is going to turn the ball over and it's going to be up to this defense to keep the Niners in the game. And so by drafting a great edge rusher, it means that you're going to be able to continue to do what you did in 2019 with better quarterback play. And isn't that the goal? Because we all know what the goal is now. And it's to beat those bastards in Los Angeles. Aren't you sick of them? Because I'm sick and tired of them talking smack every single week because they won one Super Bowl. One!
They listen, it's pretty wild, right? Because I feel like it was mild when they beat us. Like the excitement was mild, but now that they've actually won the Super Bowl, yeah, you're getting a lot of crazy talk from Rams fans.
Did you see the crazy ass video they posted, Jesse, of like a movie trailer for their getting rid of their picks?
You know what though? I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was pretty dope. And then we got our GM looking like a turd in front of everybody. Don't ask me any questions. I don't know. I personally liked that they did that. I thought it was pretty cool. They're having fun with it, man. Like they're enjoying it. And so it's like, I don't know, man. I don't necessarily hate that stuff. I wish our organization was a little bit cooler, to be real with you.
No, I mean, they've bought into this, F them picks thing. Like that's been the thing. They've bought into it. Hook, line, and sinker. That is the Rams, right? And my thing is, they do a lot of Rams fans do a lot of spaces now, and it's funny we couldn't find them anywhere when we were playing.
No, they didn't exist.
Time. And so, it's interesting that now their point is, we're the same team we were last year, and it's like, no, you're not. You're a worse football team. You're absolutely a worse football team.
Yes.
And so, if the Niners are a better football team and the Rams are a worse football team, then God, I hope we can beat those bastards in the playoffs. Because wouldn't it be nice, even if they don't win the Super Bowl, for Trey Lance to come in and his first year in the NFL, go out there and just beat stupid Stafford and the damn Rams and their fucking, I swear. I get really angry when
same old sorry ass Rams.
And honestly, like how fun would that be just to create a whole space where all we do is cheer and just scream same old sorry ass Rams after we beat them in the playoffs. Like that's all I want at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because like Seattle's just not a thing anymore. We've moved so far past that. Yeah, man, I'm with you. Like, yes, whatever it takes to beat the Rams. Obviously, having an elite pass rusher opposite of Bosa with an upgrade at corner like the 49ers have made, yeah, you're probably in a pretty good spot to be the dominant defense. So no, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
And then the question I have to ask you is, are the 49ers a better team with Deebo Samuel and, 61 against the Rams, or are they a better team if they trade Deebo and they make these 3 picks we keep talking about?
Well, listen, I
love Deebo Samuel. I get it. I understand like where you're coming from. But the thing is like he's one wide receiver making 23, 24, 25 million a year when Cooper Kupp is probably going to take a freaking discount to play in LA, but Deebo Samuel won't do it because for some reason Mike McDaniels told him, hey, it's going to be rough. Like, shut up. You're the Dolphins head coach.
All right, here's what I'll say. I think in 2022, you're better with Deebo. I think going forward, however, with those picks, let's say they get 10, 35, 38, 10, 35, 69, 10, 38, 69. With those picks and the money saved, long-term, you're better. But in 2022, with Deebo, you're 100% better.
And I totally agree with people who are saying, Raymond's right here. He also said that wide receiver got us to the playoffs. He did, but he got us to the playoffs because the quarterback was inept. Like, I think people forget just how inept Jimmy Garoppolo was.
For sure.
For like that whole entire, from the Bengals game to the Rams playoff game. I guess we can give him the Rams, the final game of the season against the Rams. Like, he was fine, I guess. Like, okay. But like, he was inept for almost like 7 weeks straight. That's why Deebo had to do what he did.
Well, by the way, not only that, but our defense was pretty atrocious to start the season. Let me remind everybody how well they did. So from week 10 on, this includes through the playoffs, only one game did they allow a team to go above 90 yards rushing, right? That was against the Seahawks, which they lost in week 13. They gave up 146 yards. But before that, week 9 back from week 1 to week 9, here's what they gave up: 116 rushing yards, 151 rushing yards, 100 rushing yards, 105 rushing yards, 94, 148, 176, 163. They had 4 games of giving up 148 yards or more. So it wasn't just Jimmy, which obviously Trey Lance is an improvement, but the defense was horrible to start the season, right? Like if the defense is much better, special teams is better, quarterback is better, right? Like you stands to reason that even without Deebo, and obviously missing Deebo would be huge, but if you replace him with 3 draft picks and 1 or 2 can help you immediately, you're still going to be pretty good. Like you're still contending. You're better on defense. You're better on special teams. You're better at quarterback. Maybe you're slightly worse overall on offense, or let's just say worse overall on offense. But you possibly still could be a better team. So yes, Deebo did. He had to do everything. But 2021's problems don't necessarily carry into 2022, right? And so last year's team, we believe, was a quarterback away. This year's team, maybe they're a Deebo Samuel away. Maybe there's something else that's going on that's unforeseen. Like we just don't know what those issues are. And oh, by the way, if Deebo's not on the roster, they're not paying him, and Jimmy gets cut, at any point you get close to that trade deadline. I know. But if you get close to that trade deadline and the 49ers are looking pretty good, you can make a trade, a lopsided trade where maybe you give up a late rounder for a guy that's making a lot of money on another team that's highly talented that team can't afford anymore, and you go all in, right? So whoever that player is, offense, defense, doesn't matter, but you have those available flexibilities. So no, losing Deebo is not ideal by any means, but I think long term it actually probably does help you, and you're still competitive without Deebo. I don't think you're a Super Bowl team without Deebo, but you certainly should still expect playoffs without Deebo, in my opinion.
I mean, you should expect playoffs anytime this roster is healthy, right? Like that's the thing. This is one of the better rosters in the NFL. Like they're 14-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. Like if you're 14-1, you should make the playoffs. Like if they don't make the playoffs, we're going to be in every single space, every single YouTube channel, everything just screaming about how angry we are, and it's going to hurt Trey Lance's confidence.
Well, and I'll say this too. Everybody talks about Ayuk breaking out, which I think we all agree. But right here, you're talking about the explosive plays. George Kittle's an explosive tight end. He's still on this roster. I know we forget about him, but you've now got a quarterback with the arm to unlock the potential for these guys. I think Ayuk's a pretty explosive receiver, actually. I think he's open a lot down the field. I don't think he's open. I know he's open a lot down the field. I watched it many times over. So if you have a quarterback that can get him the ball all of a sudden and push it down the field, including a dynamic tight end, you still can be an explosive offense. Certainly you're not as explosive, right? Like this offense, as it is with Trey Lance and Deebo, is more explosive than it is without Deebo. There's no denying that. But if you're comparing this offense to last year's offense with the emergence of Ayuk, Kittle now having a quarterback that can push it downfield and having a quarterback that can not only push it downfield, but can also run, I think they can still be pretty explosive. Maybe not as explosive, but I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo was pulling the trigger last year. Doesn't matter how good the bullets are if the gun's trash, right? Or if the trigger puller isn't accurate, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is the quarterback's better. You still have weapons. It can still be an explosive offense.
Yeah. And so we got about a little less than 10 minutes left. I just want to talk to you, something you mentioned, and I wanted to come back to it earlier. You mentioned, the interior of the offensive line. We've talked center, till we can't talk anymore, till we're purple in the face. But what do you think of this potential of the guards being Aaron Banks and Daniel Brunskill? And do you think that the 49ers are so confident in that they're willing to not touch guard at all in this draft? Because, there's a couple positions I don't think they'll touch. I don't think they're going to go tight end anymore just because they have Warner and what's his name, and Ross Dwelly signed. I don't think they'll go running back, but there's that chance. Linebacker, who knows? They just got Aziz on his neck, on his tender. So I don't think they go linebacker. Corner, maybe just because there's someone there they can steal. But guard would be one that I think that they would be after in those later rounds.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you have to, at the very least, get somebody who could play center and guard, maybe. Somebody that, let's say Max stays, right? Maybe you get a guard, center/guard, that can play or compete for guard this year and be your future center, right? Like, I don't think that they can feel completely comfortable. Although I will say this, if Banks goes back to left guard, which the assumption is that's where he's comfortable, Jalen Moore was brought in to also play guard, right? He was forced to play tackle a little bit, but he was brought in to play guard. Like, I think between Brunskill, Moore, and Banks, you can find two serviceable starters out of those three. I do believe that, right? You have an open competition, you figure it out from there. I actually don't feel that horribly about that, but I don't listen. I think drafting guard is probably still something they should try to do at some point in the draft. Yes, bring in somebody else to compete. The more bodies, the better.
And then the final thing I want to talk to you about is, obviously we keep saying 10, 35, 38 would be the Deebo thing. If Mekhi Becton is in there, what are you thinking about, the tackle situation? Is Mekhi automatically the starter opposite Trent Williams? Are they just done with McGlinchey after the 5th year? What are your thoughts on that situation if it did happen?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can. I don't think McGlinchey could play guard by any means. I just don't think his body type is that. Maybe Becton could. But if not, I mean, you let those guys compete. I imagine that Becton will win that job. I just think Becton's supremely more talented. The issues with him is a weight thing. But listen, if that's a part of the trade, like let's say it's Becton 35 and 38 for Deebo. Okay, I'm not mad at that either. Like, to me, you're 3 deep at tackle. Like, if Trent Williams goes down, and he probably will at some point, you've got a guy that can step in right away, and you're comfortable there. And so if he misses a couple games, you're good. You've got 2 guys competing for that right tackle spot. Now you're not forced to pay McGlinchey long term. You've got another guy who was a first round pick that is a couple years in. You can pick up his 5th year option. So you've got another cheap option opposite of Trent Williams. Maybe he can slide over to left tackle in 4 or 5 years when Trent Williams is gone. So yeah, I'm not mad at that either. I would definitely, I mean, that's a trade I threw out early. Becton 35 and 38 for Deebo. I'm doing that as well. Like, to me, I just don't think that it has to be draft picks, right? And I know that on the surface, maybe a tackle is not something you need, but this was a first round talent. This is a guy who has a lot of upside, and I think tackle is a position of need. So yeah, I'm definitely doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be down to have a tackle to replace McGlinchey. We don't have to, spend money on him just in case he is terrible. Because if he is terrible coming back from this injury, then you're in a bad situation because you're going to have to draft tackle. That's what your first, and I don't think you have a first round pick next year. So unless you get one from the Deebo trade, that's going to be the pick. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting night. What's going on your channel for the draft, Jesse?
Yeah. So we're going live. Last year we were live. It sucks because it was on the old channel. So like, I don't have my reaction of when Trey Lance was picked anymore. I wish I had that, to say the least, but we're going to be live for rounds 1, 2, and 3. You're going to have people going in and out of that thing. I think you're going to be going in and out of the stream. Sunil, David Likety, multiple people. I got like 5 or 6 people that said that they want to come in. Marco might come in at some point. I'm sure some of the twins, Jamal, and everybody, man, anybody can come in and out. If you're just watching the channel, I'll have the link up if you want to come in and talk. And here's the thing, whether Deebo's on the roster or not, like let's say the 49ers don't have a first round pick, the first round is still very interesting because there's going to be a lot of, first of all, you're up until 10, really up until probably 16, I think, with Philly or the Saints, whoever has that. Like there's a chance Deebo gets traded, right? So you're going to have that. Then once you get to the back half of the draft, what makes it so interesting is now you get to start seeing who falls out of the first round and who's getting pushed back that you might be able to get at 61. So that whole first round, regardless, is going to be something that we have to watch for sure. And then obviously round 2 and 3, the 49ers certainly have picks in. Maybe they'll have multiple if they trade Deebo. Yeah, that's going to be a must watch as well. So yes, certainly you're going to watch the draft anyways. If you don't have a bunch of people over, you can tap in with us. You got your usual suspects, people you like to watch anyways. Just come enjoy the party. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'll be over there. It's kind of the one benefit of getting COVID when I did is that I don't have to go to work till next Monday. So like I have all this time to just do whatever I want. And so here I am the week of the draft. It's like I couldn't have planned it better. So I'll be in there. So talking to guys and just hanging out and just having a good time. It should be a fun time. It always is with the draft, no matter what, just because you get to see the future of the NFL kind of happen in front of you. And I am honestly going to be so excited to see how the Seattle Seahawks fuck this up. That's my most excited thing I am. I cannot wait to see how the Seattle Seahawks find a way to mess this up at 9. Like, come on, man. You got 9 and you picked him? That's going to be my favorite part.
They'll screw it up somehow. Yeah, they'll screw it up somehow. You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams. He's a box safety.
Well, think about it. If let's say the trade is 10 and 38, basically the Jets made the trade. They traded Jamal Adams. They picked up Vera Tucker and Deebo Samuel for Jamal Adams. Talk about a ripoff. I mean, they completely fleeced the Seattle Seahawks. So yeah, it'll be nice to see what the Seahawks do because they'll screw it up.
And of course, I'm gonna make sure I watch Draft Day on Thursday morning because if you've never watched that movie, it's not a great movie, but the Seahawks get fleeced in that movie.
I love that movie. I love that movie. You know what? It's a little corny. I know it wasn't the best production value, whatever, but I actually liked the movie, man. I thought it was a lot of fun. So yes.
I just like watching the Seahawks get fleeced in it. That's my
favorite. Yeah, well, you just love that.
Because I'm watching it as a Niner fan. I'm like, oh, who are the Browns trading with now? And then they fleece the Seahawks. And I'm like, this is the best movie ever.
Well, and we get to watch basically rounds 1, 2, and 3, and the Rams don't have a pick. That's always fun too. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, the Rams social media account tweets the new movie starring Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford about how picks don't matter. I hate them. I didn't think I'd hate them this much, but I really don't like them.
Yeah, it's kind of insufferable when they win a Super Bowl. That's it.
And I was rooting for them because I wanted Aaron Donald to freaking retire. God. We're running out of time here. You can always check out the show on my YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I don't know how many subscribers we have, but once we get 1,000, I'm giving away one of them new Niner jerseys. And we might not even do Trey Lance. Maybe we'll do someone else. So maybe we'll let the winner pick. We'll do that. Maybe we'll do something fun. So make sure you're subscribed. Once we get 1,000, I'm cutting it off, and we're gonna give away a jersey. Right, hopefully it's before the season. We'll see what happens. And then you can check me out at 90849 on Twitter. Jesse, what's your Twitter?
Yeah, it's at JNay_LSS. Again, tap in at Last Second Sports to watch the draft party. And actually, I'm looking right now. We eclipsed finally today 5,300, which means I now owe a jersey of my own. I've got that Joe Montana, Mitchell and Ness jersey that I promised. So I'm now giving that out on the draft. So if you're subscribed to the channel, you're automatically entered. I will narrow it down before then. I'll probably get down to around 10, randomly picking, and maybe your name pops up there and you'll be getting a jersey that night. So there you go.
Fingers crossed. I hope I win. I really do.
That'd be so messed up. You're like on the stream and you win.
Oh my God, I won! That's it for today. Thank you for coming on. Let's enjoy the draft. Maybe Deebo's traded, maybe he's not. But, go Niners. Oh, yeah, one more thing. The hype train never stops, baby!